Hey guys, 7th here with another 10-minute shit. This time it is Ghostbusters Sanctum of Slime. Now, I will say at the beginning here that this one almost pulled it out of the fire. It almost got high enough to not be considered shit territory, but then it ended up falling in anyway. First thing you'll notice, it starts out with these comic book style intros, and let me tell you something, if you just sit and watch these naturally, just the first intro alone takes about 15 minutes to sit through. It's incredibly boring. So as you can see, I just start skipping through it and skip, 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 and it's going, and it's going, and it's going, and it just keeps coming. It's the comic book that would never end. And eventually, I just got so fed up with this shit that I just decided to skip past all of it and go straight into the game. Now, even though the comic book there showed some of the original characters, you don't play as Egon or Pete or any of the other characters. You don't Ray, Winston. You don't play as any of those. They're all new guys. And it's almost like that cartoon that came out in the late 90s, the Extreme Ghostbusters, where the only original character was Egon, and he was kind of a wise mentor character to a bunch of teenagers. That's what it feels like here. So, there's no nostalgia factor to it because of the fact that you don't know who any of these guys are. As you can see, it's kind of an overhead twin-stick shooter. And apparently old Egon's been working on the proton packs, because now you don't need to capture ghosts. The proton beam just destroys them unless it's a boss. Now you'll see in these clips there's some horizontal screen tearing problems. Control-wise, it works fine. There's nothing wrong with the controls. It's just, you've played this kind of game before, and you can't help but feel, especially after playing the phenomenal retail game that came out a few years ago, you can't help but feel that they could have used this license towards something better than this. Even though it works perfectly fine, and you've got a level up system, you've got multiplayer, it just feels kind of half-assed. And I know I only paid $5 for it, but still, it's a Ghostbusters game. It's based on a great license. It ought to be better than this. I mean, Ghostbusters was one of the few times where a game that's based on a series of movies is actually good. That was a great game. It was a really fun take on the whole third-person shooter genre. This is just kind of bland. And now it gets a little bit more interesting as you get into the later levels, which you'll see here in a little bit, because they start adding to the kind of things that you can do with the weaponry. But even then, they do it in such a bland, boring way that, well, you'll see. You'll see. We'll get there. Music-wise, I mean, you can hear it. There's nothing spectacular here. Originally, this game was like $14, I think. It was at least 10, but it didn't sell for shit, so now you can get it for 5. So by all means, if these kind of isometric twin-stick shooters are your kind of thing, go for it. Again, it does have multiplayer, so if you want to play with your friends online, you can do that, and it works as well as what you're looking at here. I will say that the AI characters that follow you around are kind of shit. I mean, they'll fire at the bad guys and they'll kill some of them for you, but heaven forbid if you should get knocked down. Now, that's one of the few mechanics from the retail game that made it here, is that if you get knocked down, your AI characters have the ability to revive you. The problem being is that if you get in a situation where it's so hectic that you can get knocked down, chances are at least 2 of the AI guys have been knocked down too. And the AI guys care more about each other than they do about you. They'll try to revive themselves before they come to your help. And so then they end up getting themselves killed trying to revive one of the other AI characters, and then you have to start the whole fucking level over. Ain't that just fucking grand? But it's kind of hard to come up with a lot of good things to say or bad things to say about this game, because what you're seeing here is pretty much what the whole game is. It's this, and then, a boss battle at the end of each level. And the only real difference between the boss battles and what you're seeing here is that at the end of the boss battle, when you run his life bar down, which takes forever to do, you get to suck him up into a trap. But there's no neat cinematic or any special effects or anything like that. You just drop the box, he disappears, you pick the box up, the level's over. That's pretty much it. And you're going to see that here, right here. Here's a boss fight. Fantastic, huh? Got a life bar, otherwise it's the same fucking shit. and you just basically run around, try to avoid his projectiles, shoot him until his life bar goes down, and when his life bar goes down, you're going to see me drop a trap and pick him up and go on. Now you can see you're picking up score points and whatnot. You can kind of upgrade your character somewhat, but with as short of a game as it is, you don't really get a chance to experience it. I mean, you get new weapons at later on in the game anyway. You don't have to buy them or anything like you did with the retail release. They just kind of appear in your inventory, because without them, the way they've designed the levels, you wouldn't be able to get through them anyway. So you kind of have to have the new weapons the way they've designed it. I was really disappointed here, because I was hoping, I know not to expect perfection out of a PSN title, although it does happen. I mean, games like Journey and some of the Pixel Junk games and Outland and whatnot. I know great gaming experiences can be had from a PSN title. I didn't expect this to be, on the level of those type of games, but I at least expected to have a more varied experience than this. Maybe even like like in the old NES game where you could control the Ecto-1 and drive around town and shoot stuff. Like maybe an overworld map where you could have mixed something like this with maybe the old style Grand Theft Auto games. If you were like what was on the PSP or the DS version, where it was more of a throwback to the original Call of Duty, the original Grand Theft Auto games before they went 3D. If they could have thrown something in like that to just kind of vary the gameplay a little, that would have gone a long way towards making this a more compelling experience. But otherwise, you spend so much of the game doing the same damn thing from one level to the next that it just gets repetitive, and you find yourself forcing yourself to play through it. Here's some more comic book I don't want to read. Now here's an interesting thing that happens in the game. They have possessions. So you'll have NPCs that get possessed by ghosts, and you have to exorcise the ghosts out of them. And then here's that weapon mechanic. Now you can see I've got a new weapon, and it's color-coded. You just have to look at the color of the ghost, and that lets you know which weapon you're supposed to be using. So if it's a yellow ghost, you use the yellow weapon to destroy it. So again, like with Outland and Icaraga, you've got color contextual enemies. And so that adds a bit of extra layering to the playability of the game. Yeah, but, there's not really anything mind-blowing about it. Even when you get to levels where they have multicolored ghosts, you're just hitting R1 to switch between the two. Like, here's some red ghosts, and then in a second some yellow ones will appear, where you're just flipping back and forth. It doesn't really affect anything. And here you're getting attacked by ghosts in wheelchairs, which I found a little funny, but, not funny enough to make me want to give this game a higher score by any means. It is what it is. There's not a whole lot to say about this game. I mean, everything that I've shown you here is pretty much what you'll experience throughout the entire time that you play it. So it's really kind of up to you as to whether or not you think this kind of experience is worth $5. I guess it is from a multiplayer experience, because I could see how, getting together with 3 guys on PSN and clowning each other and fucking around with this could be kind of fun. It certainly has a lackluster single-player experience. I don't really see it being fun from a competitive deathmatch kind of style, but as a 4-player co-op game, yeah, there could be some MST3K style laughs to be had with this, just making fun of how bad the game is, which, again, it could be worse, and it's absolutely playable. The controls are just fine. It just feels half-assed. I feel they could have done a lot more with the license, because a lot more has been done with the license. So I've got to give this one a 3 out of 7. Who you gonna call? Sony. For my fucking $5 back. That's who I'm gonna fucking call.